chat again. Welcome to August of 2022. So thank you for joining me. Today here in New Zealand is August the 1st, and I thought it seemed a timely moment in time to do a predictive series reading for the month ahead with the Psi cards, which are these ones here, and also have a look at some tarot cards. I guess most of you will already understand the amount of energy that is flowing around the planet that seems to be quite intense. There's a fair degree of heaviness, of negativity, and I think that we feel that all individually as well as collectively as a conscious energy field around the planet. So it seemed a really good time to look into perhaps what is ahead for August, and maybe this reading would even go a little bit beyond. But there's no doubt that the astrologers, if you listen to good astrologers that are freely available on YouTube and other platforms, they are saying that we're traversing a timeline, I guess, of very difficult times in terms of astrology and astrological planetary lineups. I follow Joni Patri. I think she's a very, very good Vedic astrologer, and she's just come out with her August predictions and given some highlights as to how the rest of the year will go ahead, and she calls it an alarming time where many changes will take place that will shape the way we live. I'd been saying that myself since late 2019, probably before even the pandemic reared its ugly head. I knew that we were moving into the 20s with this deep sense of synergy that was just all about change, and it wasn't coming in at a positive level, I didn't feel. So those were the energy fields that I had been tapping into myself, and they seem to have become a little stronger, like tethered to the ground more, or tethered to the here and now in this timeline, but also darker. So I sometimes think if we look into the energy of the possible future through something like this, forewarning yourself is forearming yourself, and you can think of ways to deal with changes that might be coming or situations that might crop up. It can also be used in another way, that you can proposition your thoughts to go in the opposite direction, so focus on a different outcome. I still am not entirely convinced whether I believe in full karma or whether karma can be changed as an outcome or a horizon event line comes upon us. So sometimes if enough people are involved, an outcome could be changed, and that's what we can do if we know enough about looking into the future. We can sometimes alter the outcome, which can be beneficial. I'm not guaranteeing that that can be done, and for all I know, the cards that come for this reading may not even be that bleak. So we'll just go ahead and start shuffling and see what messages come in and see where we're headed in the month of August. So for us here in New Zealand, it is the middle of winter. Well, actually, it's the last month of winter. We've had a very wet time of it lately. Down here we've had what they call climate extreme or climate change weather events, as has Australia. So we've been very wet, the two of us that reside way down here in the dark end of the deep Pacific Ocean. So yeah, for you guys up north in the northern hemisphere, I guess it's coming toward the end of your summer. I hope you've all had an engaging time of those lovely summer energies that come forward with that nurturing warmth and glow from the sun that you can get. So we've started the shuffling with the tarot cards. This one here is going to be our first one out. It seems to be a bit of a jumper, so we'll take that one, and that is the Three of Swords. Always a gloomy looking card, and it does have quite a strong message, even though it is only a minor arcana card. It's probably a little bit ominous that was the very first card that came out for the reading of August. It's not what you would call an enlightening card to come. So this is for August for 2022. This is for the Earth's Predictions series. A whole bunch have jumped out over here. We will perhaps go ahead and use them. They've sort of come out. Doesn't really matter which order I pull them from. Another three. So this is the Three of Wands, a much more positive card. And then I've picked them up and they've become reversed. So again, not a particularly positive omen when we get reversals. And there is the Seven of Swords. He's also one of my least liked characters in the deck. The Lovers reversed, the Ten of Wands, and the Wheel of Fortune. So one major arcana card, two of the swords, two of the wands, sorry, two major arcanas, we could put them there and look at them all together. So two major arcanas here and here, which have ended up beside themselves, two wands and two swords. Technically the wands often refer to our careers, or perhaps the aspect of us about creativity. Oftentimes these two in particular can be referring to careers. I'm thinking here this is something to do with, even though they're not coins that have come out, so they're not specifically mentioning finances, it feels to me as though something along the lines of groups, or your jobs, or your careers, or what we're doing here, the way we work, or the type of work we're dealing with is in a mode of changing, or a mode of uncertainty. So something feels uncertain on the planet, given that we've got these four reversals. Now, you know, that could very well be my fault in as much that I have turned them up and they've come out reversed, but whatever the cause is, they've come to us reversed. When the Wheel of Fortune comes out, and it doesn't turn up that often, this is a major player, this card. It literally is telling us that things are changing. It's a card that's denoting an entire cyclical period of life is evolving, and we are turning into this new period. It can be a slow changing event, which is what I feel has been happening, and I feel that this decade of the 20s is the slow changing event. But by the end of the 20s, life will be almost unrecognizable as we have, if you like, mutated into a new way of living for whatever reason that is. The Lovers card often also represents obviously unions and partnerships, but this time up the card has come out upside down, so as if it's suggesting that partnerships or unions are being sullied or falling apart. And that was of course the very first card that came out, this Three of Swords over here, which traditionally in any reading indicates sadness, disturbances, disagreements, or misunderstandings, or miscommunication, especially when we think of swords as being the cards of communication. So it's as if somewhere along the line we have miscommunicated something, or when we are talking, our negotiations are not being heard, or they're not being respected, or they're going AWOL, or we're misunderstanding them. Now, oftentimes three people can be involved, or three parties. It could be three countries, for instance, because remember, this is a reading that is talking about the global energy field that is coming in for the whole of humanity, or the conscious collective energy that is being pushed around the planet. And the fact that we had this other three right next to this one gives this heightened number, the number 3. So 3 is a transitional number about change and about evolvement and about looking forward to the future. So there's some sort of severing coming up in August, and it could be to do with communications, and it could be to do with countries that have been liaising together or talking or trying to communicate. And it feels as though this is not going well. There is this feeling of looking forward into the future, of trying to make plans, or looking ahead to see where could I go if I have to leave, where could I land, where could I next move to. This is a card that is often about expansion or growing outwards as well. So this card could literally be saying someone wants to expand or merge or grow out or take over or move into something. Now, of course, on the planet at the moment, we have these warring factions going on. The obvious one is the Russia-Ukraine issue, and this could almost signify Russia and Ukraine up here, and this card definitely does. So this could be someone like Putin thinking, where can I expand to next? How much further can I go? You know, how far can my tenuous grip on other countries be taken? And it could be that the sadness here could be the whole of the heart being wrenched out of the lives of the average Ukrainian citizen that is suffering so much lately. The number 3 may represent something like on the 3rd day of the month or the 3rd week, or this might be the 3rd time some form of negotiation has fallen through. It could be in alignment with some of those things, but the fact that they're attached to the 7 of Swords up here, who is a deceitful, rotten blackguard of a creature. He's the scum of the earth, in as much that he is a liar and a cheater, and he hides things. Something is coming to light that he is perhaps being shown up. He is maybe falling off a platform, or something has been opened up about this deceitful cheater or liar. A person who has had plans to rip asunder something that someone else has treasured or has made good of. This is the thief in life. Now also, when this card turns up, I often say to people, be very wary of major global cyber attacks. So there could be a really big cyber attack in August, and it could be to do with the warring factions that are going on. You know, I've only mentioned Russia and the Ukraine, but there are so many other issues on the planet at the moment. Almost every country has got tensions going on. We have China and Taiwan. We have the Sri Lankan issue. We have issues here in New Zealand that are not boding well at the moment. Our democracy is under threat as well. And that's just to name but a few. Canada is also in a tenuous situation with their government and their leader. We have the Netherlands with issues there, and the farmers are pleading for changes to, you know, policies around farming. So we see this intensity and this passion and this drive for change coming from almost every aspect of every citizen on the planet. But we also see this blockade, this brick wall coming up for citizens from the people who are ruling the countries independently, the governments. You know, we think too of England and the UK and Boris Johnson being turfed out, and the last words he said as he was leaving, "Hasta la vista, baby, I'll be back." I mean, who knows? Boris may well be back. There's the Trump thing going on in America at the moment. More of those issues are playing out. And Biden's health, he's not well. So there's also issues with China and the USA. I can go on and on and on, but where do I start and where do I stop, and how long does this go on for? I think we all know the severity and the depth to which any part of the world could literally fracture into some explosive event at any point in time. But what we're seeing in the cards here is a discombobulation, like a rippling of pain and of sadness, of anger and angst, and of feeling cheated in particular. Both of these cards represent being cheated out of something, being blindsided, having not known what was going on, having something hidden from you, you know, by a deceitful leader, or even on a personal event, even at the deeper personal level. This could be happening to individuals, because the Lovers can represent the union of two people. This can also represent the union of two. So even personally around the world at the moment, personal relationships may be very intense and under scrutiny, and come up for, you know, emotional traumatic misinterpretations of what is being said or what is not being said can often be the case. So I feel this burden, this heaviness around us, and some of it is falling from the skies like Chicken Little. What was that old saying back in the day about Chicken Little when the skies fell in? I can't quite remember the words exactly, but this is kind of where it feels as though it's headed. This that he's reversed could be a good thing. If it's a major cyber attack globally, it may be stopped before it does too much damage, or we may get a windfall of it before it opens up, or it may be that it backfires one way or another, or the culprits are caught, or whoever starts it off is found out, something along those lines. I think we have to come back to this card down here in the middle, the Wheel of Fortune, and we have to assume that this is a pathway that is happening for whatever reason it's going to happen. It's part of the journey of the growth of us, of how we move forward, of how we make the changes, of how we either fall apart at the seams, or whether we can come together with a vision and move forward with not autocracy or tyranny, but new knowledge and new ideas and concepts, that maybe this part of us is moved aside and some form of growth through a new paradigm or a new cycle of life takes us to a new evolution. I do believe we are evolving as a human species, and we're evolving into what I would call a cyborg, for want of a better word. Many of us are having a transition taking place whereby we're becoming part computerized. If you think of yourself right now, many of you may be watching or listening to this on a phone which you're holding, and this holding of this electronic piece of equipment is becoming more and more embedded into us. And some of us are even having electronics put into our bodies, oftentimes for the betterment of us, in terms of things like pacemakers or medical equipment that is saving our lives, or giving us a longer lifespan, or finding out about health defects before it's too late to have them reversed. So we're all transitioning one way or another into the cyborg aspect of us, and as we do that, our own genome is being mutated somewhat. And no, I'm not going to get too much into the argument about how or why our genome is being mutated and by what. And I think you all know what I'm referring to here about vaccines. But that's almost a side agenda, in as much that there's a much deeper, darker web that is working behind us to manufacture our future. So it is up to us to be independent and to be mindful and to be free and to think positively and to fight for your freedom like they're doing in Sri Lanka, and fight for your democracy as they're doing in the Netherlands, and as we are starting to do here as well. These are the times to stand up and be heard more than anything, any time on earth, as we move so quickly into an era of change. And as these planetary alignments that are coming in are so intense, as the astrologers will tell you, the bigger outer planets that are making a lot of the changes haven't been in these positions for around 2,000 years. And historically, we don't have a lot of information about human life before 2,000 years ago, so we're not entirely sure what happened back in time. So we're setting new historical empirical evidence as we move forward, but we're not really sure what we have to base it on what happened in the past. So these are big times and these are big changes, and we have to be ready for them. And I think that card there truly tells us we are on the cusp of something major, but it's reversed. And so does it say to us we're either holding up the change, or something about it is not good for us? Do we have an opportunity to turn it around and make it a change for the better, for this celebration to be happy? I also see the King and Queen. It makes me ponder about the monarchy of England as well. Is there something going on there? Well, I think a lot of us think there is, especially with the two younger, Harry and Meghan, who have divorced themselves from the family and moved to America. There's something quite odd and sinewy in that whole perspective of the personal relationship, the lovers. Not to get too deep in that one either, but I don't think that's an unusual relationship in terms of things aren't balanced. They're very out of balance, out of kilter. Yeah, there's a lot of cleaning and clearing to be done there to make that a healthy relationship too. The only one I haven't really mentioned at this point in time is this 10 of Wands. Again, the 10 is a cycle of change number. They're two 10s together, so we had the two 3s, the two 10s together. They were both reversed. This is sort of saying, can we carry the burden much longer? Is the burden slipping away? Is something falling or slipping that we've been holding on to, trying to work through to bring into the next stage, are we losing our grip on it? Is it disappearing from us? Are things being taken out of our hands? And is it just karmic event that's taking place that we just have to witness and walk through? So I think those are the messages that came from those cards. Let's see what the actual Psi cards are going to deal up for us. So this is for the Psi prediction series for August of 2022. What is in store here for us? The stars, and we've just been talking about the planetary alignment and you know, what is coming in the future, and how is the Wheel of Fortune changing our dynamic, and what is karma, and you know, what holds the future. That's often what I think of when the stars card comes out. We don't know what the future holds for us. And then we see the Death card as the next one, as a jumper. It's not too hard to interpret. It means death, and it often means mass deaths, unfortunately. The Home card has come out and it's ended up reversed. And the Home card, when I'm doing this reading, often does refer to my home, which is New Zealand, and areas around New Zealand, so Australia and the Pacific Islands. And that's another thing, the Pacific Islands are going through great trauma at the moment. Many of them are, you know, struggling financially, and also with terrible climate event issues that are happening, and like the Kiribati are being flooded. They're almost disappearing. So some of them are signing up to financial help from China. So China's getting a really strong foothold in the South Pacific. And whether or not that's something to be concerned about, none of us actually know yet. But it's definitely on the move, as if, you know, someone, Xi Jinping, is thinking of moving and expanding an empire. And how far does he go, and where is his next move? So there's all sorts of complications around that. The Home, for me, then, if it's reversed, does it mean there's something negative and impactful going on in New Zealand? I've mentioned it briefly, and there is at the moment. We're going through a very tumultuous time, especially with the political leaders and the political adjuncts that are happening in the background. It could also mean things like earthquakes or severe weather events, or fires, or something along those lines. We have the Wheel. Oh wow, the Wheel of Fortune. It's duplicated itself. So the message here is being emphasized doubly strong about this changing wheel, this motion of time and event. And this one was, of course, reversed. This one isn't. But I just get the feeling that something is happening to us on this planet that we are either unaware of, or was unexpected, or we don't know how to stop it, or it's out of control, you know, along those lines. Libido is a big, powerful card when it comes in. Liberation, we have peace, the beauty, the voyage, and the sun. Quite a lot popped out. That's more than I would normally do for a Psi reading, but they all shot out wanting to be here. So we'll briefly go over them. The Death card, as I've said, is a mass death event, and it is right above the libido. It can happen at night, or in the darkness of night, or somewhere where it appears to be dark, like stuck in a building or underground or a subway, something along those lines. Now the libido is a card of great strength and passion and power. It's when that libido has been released and there is a surge of wild energy. Unfortunately, it can often be a compassionate event that creates compassion around the world from other people, and it can be a mass death event. So we have the two cards above each other that are suggesting a mass death. This can, and I've noticed it in the past in readings when this card comes out in particular, it can reference mass killing events in America or Northern America, but I've also seen it when we see them up in around Norway way, up the top up there. It can be gun-related mass murders or terrorist attacks. And thinking about that too, he could also represent a terrorist attack. So whether or not there's some active terrorist event being planned, I thought this might be a cyber event. It may be more of a physical event, but there definitely feels something very global here, and we're going back up to the stars again, so it's almost karmic in nature. Has it been planned already, and can we stop it? I'm unsure. This also means severe weather events, massive weather events, like flooding like you couldn't imagine. And I know right now at the moment in America there's been the terrible flooding in the southern states, and there's been a lot of deaths from that, but flooding like you couldn't imagine. Apparently it's the worst ever in history, and that's the cleanup for that is just starting now, and there were mass deaths involved in that, I think 25 so far. So it could even relate to something like that, but I suspect this is more than just that one event. The Liberation card can often represent Australia. I'm not sure why, but I often think of it with the snake down here. And it again can represent mass weather events and flooding and fleeing and the need to get away from something in a hurry. So we see two flooding events possibly side by side with these cards. So that could be a major feature in August, like lots of running from something, moving out of the way of something, needing to get away in a hurry, I feel. And it could be close to home. So this card here, which I often think represents Australia, is also right beneath the home card, which I've said represents my area on the planet, which is New Zealand or surrounding neighbours. So again, this could represent New Zealand or Australia or some of the islands around us. When the peace card comes out, it usually means lack of peace, unfortunately, and that's quite simple. I don't go into it too much more than that. It's self-explanatory. But if you see the light coming in through here, shining on this mandala, the light is from the sun, and the sun is also co-joined to this peace card coming from here. So the sun could represent some form of energetic pattern. Maybe we see some really big flares in the month of August, leading through to September and October. But it's also the time of a big eclipse that is starting in October, and the astrologists are telling us now that this eclipse is starting to take shape and begin to strengthen in our psyche, in our energetic, morphogenic energy field. Now, if you look at it, we have the sun coming in here, we have the sun up here also sending out these rays, and we have the sun here. So we've got this kind of like triangulated affair over here in the corner of this reading at the very end, almost powerfully surging through to every other card, giving it some sort of extra impulse or energetic reaction. So the sun, by the nature of what it is and how we live on this planet, is the very life force, the energy field, the battery of what gives us life. Without it, we wouldn't be here. With too much of it, we wouldn't be here. So does the sun do something? Is there something related to the sun that affects us in this month of August, or moving into the eclipse period of October? The sun has started a new solar cycle. I think it's 27 if I'm correct. It might be 25, but when it's in this bigger solar cycle, we are moving up the scale of receiving X-class flares, and it's an 11-year cycle. So we're halfway through that 11-year cycle, I think, or nearly. So we're at that timeline when these power bolts from the sun may be at their strongest, and they affect us in many different ways through the energetic field that is sent to us through a CME or an X-class flare or similar. It can alter us as humans because we're magnetic in nature, and these are magnetic kind of fields that come into us, or electrical fields. It can also affect weather events on Earth, and it can also affect earthquakes. So 3 times the amount of information coming from the sun, 3 times the energetic life force being delivered at us for some reason or another. This can often represent children when this card is around, and unfortunately events where children are affected or impacted in a negative manner, and it could be a mass event. I hope it's not a mass shooting at a school or anything like that. Crops can be affected, so globally there might be crops that are damaged that are really needed. Now, thinking of that, that is wheat. and the wheat in the Ukraine is sitting there at the port waiting to be shipped out for global use. And Putin signed an agreement last week saying that he would allow it to happen, but he's already bombed a ship or something that was close to it. So maybe the wheat is held up, and maybe that there's so much wheat there to feed people on the planet who really need it, that maybe that's another issue that comes into the picture here for August, that we notice food shortages, or that there are many hungry, starving people on the planet, but the food is sitting there not being able to be used. We see the voyage card up here. We think of ships, we think of navigation, we think of also shipping and freighting goods around the planet. And we've had so much hold up over the last 2.5 years because of the big corona thing. As you know, freighting and shipping has been really tempestuous and difficult at the best of times. So there could be more information or issues around this. There may be damage to boats. You may see cruise liners or shipping boats in trouble one way or another. And sometimes this is up in the northern hemisphere and up through the Middle East. So places like Iran or Pakistan, northern parts of India may be affected, even China when we look at this map. So there could be something that goes on up there that becomes of national importance, or global importance rather. This card can also reference earthquakes, and up in those older parts of the globe, it can also mean that sometimes there might be tsunamis that are generated. It's just the message of this card. We come to the last one, the beauty. It more often than not represents a woman, often in power, or in sort of like a monarchy or in a kingdom of some sort. Sometimes they're in the royal families that are around the globe. Sometimes they're movie stars or famous personalities. There can be something that happens to them in a negative way, so sudden deaths of some of those people, or information that comes out in the public that shocks you. It can be a pregnancy of someone that might be announced that's in the papers, or famous, or a royal family member. It can often be someone in and around the UK, and sometimes even in London themselves. So I don't know if it's referencing the Queen here, but we did talk about royalty over here with this Wheel of Fortune and the fact that it was turned on its head. So was there some sort of news that upsets the monarchy, and could it be the English monarchy? Could it be someone in England or the UK? Or could there be some positive news? It doesn't always have to be bad news either. It can be a pregnancy, it can be the birth of a baby, or it can be a marriage or divorce. So those are the cards that turned up. They're busy, they're talkative, they're active, they're very activated. I didn't touch much on the stars. I think it just basically says planetary alignments are playing a really big role in what is happening. It is literally a timeline event that's taking place, that's changing. It may be that it was needed to happen. We may not be able to stop it. It could be just part of the cyclical nature of life and where our destiny as humans on this planet is taking us, and the shape that it is taking us into the future with. So yeah, any comments, leave them. It's always great to hear your perspective of the cards, what you think they're telling you, what you're picking up from the messages that come in, how you interpret the meaning of the cards. If you have any extra information to add, it's all really interesting. It's part of the cooperation of listening to a video and having your ability to have a say and an input about the future, about how you see it and how you hold it in your heart. There's no doubt that if we can hold some positivity and some love and garnish that out towards everyone else and think in terms of a positive future, then we can help set that as an agenda. So thanks for listening, everyone. I wish you all to take care, have a happy and safe August ahead as we transition here for us into the spring months, and then on to summer, and for you guys as you transition toward autumn in the northern hemisphere, and then into your quieter winter time of reflection and contemplation. So thank you for joining me, everyone. I wish you all the best. Namaste.